All right, let's dive in. Today we're going microscopic.
Tiny but mighty, right?
Exactly. We've got the scientific text all about microorganisms. So get ready to uncover a world you never knew existed.
A hidden universe teeming with life.
That's a great way to put it. We're talking bacteria, viruses, fungi, the whole shebang.
Even those that give us the creeps, like, the rabies virus.
Oh, yeah, rabies. I always found that hydrophobia thing so scary, like the fear of water.
Well, it all boils down to how viruses work, how they're structured. They're actually so unique that they're like outliers.
Outliers.
Yeah, they don't even fit into the usual kingdoms of life, like Monera, Protista, fungi, Plantae, Animalia. They're playing a different game.
So they're kind of like the rebels of the microscopic world.
You could say that. They have this protein coat, a capsid, but unlike other organisms, they can't reproduce on their own. They need to, hijack a cell.
So they're like tiny little pirates invading and taking over.
Precisely. And speaking of different, we've got bacteria in the Monera kingdom. Now, these guys are everywhere.
Oh, I know. Soil, air, even inside us.
And their shapes are wild, like spherical ones, Kochi, rod-shaped ones,
Silly, okay.
spiral-shaped ones, spirilla, and then there are even comma-shaped ones, vibrios.
Whoa, so it's like a whole microscopic zoo down there.
Wow.
But wait, do these shapes, have a purpose?
Absolutely. Those shapes aren't just for looks. They affect how bacteria function. For instance, the spiral shape helps them move through fluids.
Oh, that makes sense, like a tiny corkscrew.
Exactly. And some have a slime capsule. It's like camouflage, helps them hide from our immune system.
So sneaky. But they need to eat, right? How do they get energy?
Now, some are autotrophic. They make their own food using sunlight or chemical reactions, like little factories.
That's pretty impressive.
Right.
What about the others?
The rest are heterotrophic. They rely on external sources for food. Some are parasitic, taking what they need from other organisms.
Not very nice.
But then there are saprotrophic ones. They break down dead stuff.
So they're like the recyclers of the ecosystem.
Exactly. Vital for decomposition. And bacteria, they keep things simple. They reproduce by binary fission, basically splitting in two.
So 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and so on.
Yep, super efficient. Now let's move on to the Protista kingdom. This one's a bit of a mixed bag.
Mixed bag.
Yeah, it's like the miscellaneous kingdom. All the eukaryotic organisms that don't fit anywhere else end up here.
So it's kind of the island of misfit microorganisms.
You could say that. You've got everything from single-celled organisms to giant kelp forests in this kingdom.
Wow, talk about diversity. So what are some of the stars of this kingdom?
Well, you've got phytoplankton, tiny algae that form the base of many aquatic food chains. They're crucial for oxygen production.
Wow. So every breath we take, we owe it partly to these tiny algae.
Pretty much. Then you've got zooplankton, drifting along and feeding larger creatures. And of course, we can't forget algae. They range from microscopic diatoms to giant kelp, like underwater trees.
From tiny to massive. So the Protista kingdom is full of surprises. Now, what about fungi? I was thinking of mushrooms, but there's got to be more, right?
Oh, absolutely. Fungi are everywhere, silently breaking down organic matter. They're vital for recycling nutrients.
So like nature's cleanup crew.
Precisely. And they come in all shapes and sizes, from mushrooms to microscopic yeasts and molds. They secrete enzymes to break down those tough organic compounds.
Interesting. So without them, things would get pretty messy.
Definitely. And speaking of relationships, some fungi partner up with plant roots.
Partner up.
Yeah. These mycorrhizal fungi help plants absorb water and nutrients more effectively.
So it's like a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Exactly. The fungi get sugars from the plant, and the plant gets a boost from the fungi. A win-win.
That's amazing. Like a hidden underground partnership.
It really highlights how interconnected the microbial world is with everything else on Earth.
You know what? That's a perfect point to pause. We've covered so much about these amazing microorganisms, but we've got more to explore.
Back again for more microbial adventures. We were just talking about how vital the microbial world is.
Oh yeah, totally intertwined with everything else.
So let's get into their ecological roles. They're like the unseen puppet masters of the planet.
Puppet masters. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Well, they really are. They control the flow of energy and nutrients. We already talked about the decomposers.
The cleanup crew.
Exactly. But there's so much more. Remember those autotrophs? The ones that can make their own food?
Yeah, like little factories.
They're not just feeding themselves. They're the foundation of so many food chains.
Yeah.
especially in the water.
Oh, right. The phytoplankton, those tiny algae, they were the oxygen heroes too.
Exactly. They're like the primary producers. They capture energy from sunlight and make it into organic matter.
That's pretty amazing.
Yep.
So without them, the whole ecosystem crumbles.
Pretty much. Everything else depends on them. But we also talked about the not-so-friendly microorganisms, the ones that cause disease.
Right, right. Kind of a double-edged sword.
You got it. Lots of them are beneficial, even essential, but some are pathogenic.
Pathogenic, meaning?
Meaning they cause disease. And they do it in all sorts of ways.
Like how? What are their sneaky tactics?
Well, some bacteria, they produce toxins. These toxins disrupt our body's normal functions, like cholera, remember?
Oh, yeah. The one that causes,
A severe diarrhea, yeah. It leads to dehydration.
It's crazy how something so small can be so dangerous.
Absolutely. Then you've got other bacteria, like the ones that cause strep throat.
Ugh, strep throat.
They actually invade our tissues, trigger inflammation. That's what causes the sore throat and fever.
So it's like a microscopic battle going on inside us.
You could say that. Our immune system is fighting off these invaders.
And sometimes our immune system needs a little help.
Yeah,
Which is where vaccines come in, right?
exactly. Vaccines prime our immune system to recognize specific bad guys.
Like giving them a wanted poster so they know who to arrest.
Perfect analogy. And they've been amazingly successful. Smallpox, polio, measles, all kept at bay. But some microorganisms are trickier, like viruses.
What makes viruses so hard to deal with?
Well, unlike bacteria, which are free-living cells, viruses are just packets of genetic material.
Okay.
They hijack our cells to make copies of themselves, and that makes them really hard to target with drugs. You don't want to hurt your own cells in the process.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like trying to, I don't know, get a fly off your friend's face without swatting them.
Careful surgery.
Exactly. And some viruses mutate rapidly, like HIV, makes it even harder to develop treatments.
It's like a constant race to stay ahead of them.
It really is. But even with these challenges, we've come a long way. Antibiotics have revolutionized treating bacterial infections. Antivirals are getting better all the time.
Oh, and don't forget biotechnology.
Yeah.
We're learning to use these microorganisms for our benefit. Medicines, pollution cleanup, even new materials.
It's a whole new era of bio-based solutions. We're partnering with these microbes to tackle some big challenges.
It's kind of a shift in perspective. They're not just enemies to be destroyed, but potential allies.
Precisely. They hold incredible diversity, innovation, even inspiration.
This has been fascinating. But hold on, we've got one more thing to explore. The future of microbiology. All right, final part of our microbial journey. We've been through so much, it's mind-blowing.
A whole hidden world, right? And it doesn't stop here.
Exactly. What's next for microbiology? What's the future look like?
Well, there's a lot to be excited about, this whole microbiome thing, for example.
Oh yeah, the microbiome. It feels like we're just starting to understand it.
Think of it this way. We're not just single organisms. We're like walking ecosystems.
Walking ecosystems.
Yeah, we're a collection of human cells and microbial cells all working together.
So it's like a whole community living inside us.
Exactly. And that community, the microbiome, it plays a huge role in our health.
So if we can figure out the microbiome, could we unlock like new ways to stay healthy?
Absolutely. We're learning that imbalances in our microbiome can lead to all sorts of problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Well, obesity, allergies, even autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Maybe even mental health conditions.
Wow, that's a lot. So by like tweaking the microbiome, could we treat these things?
There's a lot of research happening right now. Probiotics, for instance.
Oh, probiotics. Like in yogurt and stuff?
Yep. Those are beneficial bacteria that can help restore balance in the gut.
So eating yogurt could actually be good for you. Who knew?
More than just a tasty snack. And then there's fecal microbiota transplantation.
Fecal what now?
Basically transferring fecal matter from a healthy person to someone who's not.
Okay, that one sounds a little out there.
It's still being explored, but it shows promise for certain infections like C. diff.
So the microbiome is full of possibilities. What else is out there waiting to be discovered?
Who knows? It's a
Yeah.
treasure trove of potential therapies and insights into our own biology.
It really highlights how connected we are to this microbial world.
We can't ignore it. And speaking of connections, what about bioremediation?
Oh yeah. Using microorganisms to clean up pollution.
Scientists are finding all sorts of microbes that can break down pollutants.
So we could use them to clean up oil spills and stuff.
Potentially. But we have to be careful, right? Make sure we don't mess up the ecosystem even more.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance.
Exactly. Understanding those complex interactions is key. We can't just focus on one thing and ignore the consequences.
Which brings us to the ethics of all this, right?
Big time. The more we learn to manipulate these microorganisms, the more responsibility we have.
To use our powers for good.
Exactly. We have to think about the risks and benefits not just for us, but for the whole planet.
It's like we're learning the language of the microbial world. Now we need to use it wisely.
We have to ask ourselves some tough questions. Where do we draw the line? How do we make sure our actions benefit everyone?
Lots to think about. But it's important. We've learned how much our fate is tied to these tiny creatures.
We're not just observers anymore, we're participants in this microbial world.
This deep dive has been incredible. It's really opened my eyes to this whole new world.
It's a world full of wonders, for sure. And there's still so much more to discover.
I can't wait to see what the future holds. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you've learned something new and exciting about these amazing microorganisms. Until next time, keep exploring.